I feel like the trajectory before the pandemic happened and everything was forced to shut down, we were headed in a beautiful direction. Granted, there were hiccups, but we were on the up and up. I think Kelowna was being sought after as kind of a musician breeding ground. All these bands that were starting to do these big things in the Okanagan and in Kelowna, and then all of a sudden, we got hit with this
big stop.
Tours were canceled. We couldn't perform. Where we are now maybe is where we were hoping to get to. And maybe we're still not there, but we needed that kind of pause to reevaluate what that was looking like. But it definitely felt like Kelowna was going in the right direction. After some bust years and losses of venues, even before all of this happened, Kelowna was, and I think always will be, pushing itself to improve, pushing itself to expand.
I was a boy upon your shore. You were the ocean, vast and pure. All I could think to do each day was how to get lost inside your waves. Then I was a youth upon your cliff. You were the mountain, sharp and fit. All I could think to do each day was how to behave. Then I was a man inside your field. You were the landscape, vast and real. I confessed my love to you each day, and I would get lost inside your face. As an old man wiping your tears, holding your hand as I calm your fears. The day comes when you finally go, and I am left here with half of my soul. Now I sit alone, wayward and hurt, as all of the things that I called my own. I've moved beyond sight, I've moved beyond fear. When the field sets in, if we all die, then I'll die smiling. 'Cause I was a boy upon your shore. You were the ocean, vast and pure. All I could think to do each day was how to get lost inside your waves. I was a boy upon your shore. You were the ocean, fast and pure. All I could think to do each day was how to get lost when the fear of death sets in. If we all die, then I'll die smiling. It's hard to get lost inside your ways.
Okay. Hello. My name is Windmills.
My name is Tion Gibbs.
I'm Jordan Chase.
My name's Andrew Judah.
Hi, I am Tega from a band called Postmodern Connection.
I'm an artist, like first and foremost, but I'm also a label owner and an event producer as well.
I create music that makes you feel. I've been creating for the last 11 years now as Windmills. I've been living in Kelowna for 5 of those years. I've been touring. I've been all over the world, enjoying life, enjoying music, creating for what it means for me.
I'm a composer. I'm a producer. I'm a artist. What else do I do? A lot of little things here and there, but I'm a musician in general.
I am the owner-operator of Oodalala Recordings and a music producer. And I've been in such bands such as Stutterfly, Secret Whisper, and Freddy Krueger.
I've been making music for a few years, and I like collabing and working and helping artists try to, get their stuff up to snuff.
Kelowna has been home base now. I've found this beautiful nook in community that I feel a lot of places don't afford artists, especially in their formative years. It's a magical spot that I just keep coming back to.
Well, it's interesting. I started my career in Kelowna, went to audio school here, tried a couple of years of trying to just make it as an artist in Kelowna, and realized that to do what I actually want to do, to make the genre music I wanted to make, it just wasn't a big enough city.
There's a limited appeal in booking shows in town because, like I was saying previously, I feel like even playing the biggest show in Kelowna is about the equivalent of playing a tiny show in Vancouver because the room is not listening. You could go play Redbird, which I love, and maybe you've got 300 people there, but maybe 20 of them are listening. Maybe.
Kelowna has many great things about it in the music community. Kelowna has many terrible things about the music community. It's something that can welcome you in with open arms and then cast you out in the same sentence.
I don't think there was a lot of diversity, and not necessarily diversity in people, though I also think that, but I think more diversity in genres and artists. There isn't a whole lot of different kinds of artists.
And people tell people, I'm a rapper. People would actually laugh at me. They'd be like, what, a rapper from Kelowna? And I think there's just a stereotype of what that looks like outside of being a rapper from Toronto or in the States.
A lot of the people coming to shows in Kelowna are tourists, and they're mostly there for a good time, not necessarily to buy into an artist, not necessarily to invest in what they're doing. Even a city like Vancouver, the audiences are there to listen to what you're doing a little bit more so than I find ever happens in Kelowna.
Kelowna is a very hot and cold town, but it also affords us a living wage and a spot that's not going to make us go out and work several jobs to make ends meet. We can be creative on a budget, so to speak.
I think Kelowna's always been kind of advantageous for bands because it has that big city feel, but it's a small town. So everyone kind of knows one another, which again is maybe good and bad, but the size of it doesn't allow a lot of big fish in there. So there's only a few that can happen at one time.
So I moved to a larger city so that I just felt like I could creatively spread my wings. But, at the end of the day, this is where I started my career. So pivoting back here is there's got to be other people or other kids in a situation like I was in where people laughed at them or they didn't take them that seriously. So I was like, that needs to change. You know what I mean? It's if I can use this platform that I have now, why not put as many people on as I can? So that's kind of where that all came from. Let's come back to Kelowna and let's build something really special here.
1, 2, 1.
So sick of it. Hey, I'm Jenna Johnson. I am the lead vocalist of a pop-punk band called Coffin here in Kelowna, British Columbia. I believe that the Kelowna music scene before the pandemic hit was booming. It was really hot, and we had a lot of venues, we had a lot of bands, everybody was playing shows. We were all playing shows together within the rock, metal, punk scene. Bands that I'm loving right now, I would say I just saw them actually in April with Honey Revenge. They're a pop rock band. They're killing it on their social media game. They just came out swinging and they just put out their first record. I really love them, so let's plug for Honey Revenge. Something that bothered me about the scene beforehand and still kind of continuing in today is I would love to see more female representation within the rock, punk, metal community. A bit before, I did feel like, for myself, like as a female, like I didn't know where I fit in and I didn't feel super comfortable, but as I started playing more shows and getting to know more people in the community, I realized that it's just big love and family and everybody just is here for the same thing, just to play music and make good music and have fun.
I'm sick of it, so over it. I'm so sick of it. And when you fall asleep, I'm begging not to dream. You got me sinking in your quicksand. I see your nightmare behind me, they lay my heart to play. You got me sinking in your quicksand. And so I'm sinking in your quicksand. And you got me sinking in your quicksand. But you were always gonna let me go. You're so full of it.
I think the best example I could give of what it would be like to be an artist, let's say in the 10 years before the pandemic, was we had a lot less shows. There was a website called laner.ca. Jason Lane created this website. He posted every weekend, and he was maybe seeing like 6 shows per night on a weekend, maybe 12 total kind of thing. And that was all that was happening. You jump forward to right before the pandemic, it was up to like 30 shows on a weekend.
There's even like subdivisions within all those scenes I found. But then, because when I first moved here, you could go see like a drum and bass show on a Tuesday night at the Grateful Fed. But kind of when I moved here, it was almost like more of the slow decline of that.
Within the arts community in Kelowna pre-pandemic, it was a very comfortable scene. People knew everyone. We knew everyone by a first name basis. You know, you could walk into Fernando's, walk into Doc Willoughby's, have a beer, share like a conversation.
I think it was growing and I think it was evolving. More and more people were moving in and people were starting new interesting projects and different ideas that they'd wanted to start for a while.
But I think there was a general sense in those years before the pandemic that Kelowna was on the rise for being a city that isn't Vancouver, that isn't Toronto, that isn't Montreal.
There were definitely a lot more venues to, put on shows here. But if we're also being realistic, a lot of those venues, they just want to cover bands. You know what I mean? So you had to have a real draw as a band to be able to have an opportunity to play. They needed to know that, okay, you're either going to play the music that we know what people are going to like, or you can sell tickets, which is kind of the reality of all venues, really.
And then moving right up into the pandemic, it was like a big halt. But pre-pandemic, there was definitely a strong local scene, whatever you wanted to find.
Touch on when the pandemic hit, how you felt at first, like as an artist, maybe in general. You got like venues closing, shows are canceled.
Oh, it was a bleak time, man. Like, I really felt I had actually just quit my job. I was going to go on tour. I was going to be my first tour in the States. I was like, okay, this is going to be awesome. My first show was March 16th. I think the pandemic was announced like 3 or 4 days before that.
We were mostly focused on preparing for the release of a record that I'd been working on. We were just leaving for a tour right when the pandemic struck. And so we had done all the prep of like, we had multiple release shows planned with session players hired for various different release shows in different cities. And to have it just come to like a sudden stop was quite a drastic thing for everybody.
I was a little scared. I was fearful. I'd never seen something like that, never endured something like that in my lifetime. I have 2 younger boys. I have a 1.5-year-old and a 5.5-year-old. And I was fearful. Like there was no food on the shelves. There was no toilet paper. Like people had just ransacked this place. And I was like, I gotta feed my kids.
I think it was tough for the scene overall during the pandemic. All the venues closing down was exacerbated by the pandemic. Venues were not having a good time.
Where I really saw it was with my community. They started to lack purpose. Anxiety was running really high, depression. There wasn't an outlet for people to be creative. And that really started to hit me as my job started to taper off and was feeling a little bit lost. But honestly, it was a yearning for community.
I definitely hit a very, very low spot within my own mental health. I have already had my own struggles within mental health. So I lost all my outlets, which were playing shows and seeing friends and doing social gatherings. That was really, really hard on me. And I definitely fell into a depression where I was self-medicating, and it was a very lonely time. Luckily, I was able to come out of that, and we came out of it head first with rebranding and becoming Costin. We wrote our EP during that time and really changed it from being a really negative experience to making it into a positive experience.
So I just had to pivot. Just like, I'm just gonna make songs. That's literally what I just told myself.
For me, nothing was as heartbreaking as watching my friends perform on Zoom. And you know what? I tuned in and I listened to them. I cooked pasta while I watched my friends play their music on Zoom. And as much as I loved it, it honestly just broke my heart.
So every single Friday, you could catch the biggest electronic artists in the world playing these virtual festivals. So that was pretty cool. But eventually, even that gets old because it's just like, oh man, you're not actually there. You can only drink wine in your living room and watch Deadmau5 for so many times, you know?
The pandemic, I feel, was such a great equalizer in so many ways. I think for me, it definitely gave me a kick to realize how much I love doing what I do, and that I may have been taking that for granted. There was a lot of guilt for me, to be honest, that came with the pandemic, because while I wasn't playing live, I was still licensing my music a lot. I was still bringing in a good income with my music that my friends had lost, and I felt a bit ashamed because of that.
Lots of people did not have the same benefit that I did. I worked at home already, so it just meant that a lot of bands were sending me their stems and sending me stuff to mix rather than maybe coming into the studio at that time.
I found that a lot of people naturally went to social media because it was kind of a way to connect with other people when we were stuck in our homes.
I was having conversations with artists who are in their mid-40s, and they're talking about hey, I just did this really cool TikTok campaign and it worked out really great for them. And I was like, that's incredible that I'm having this conversation with someone who's my dad's age.
Although I do find that social media can really burn you out, you definitely have to find boundaries within that. I've learned that heavily myself, that you grind, and you're putting out so many videos and you're spending so much time on your phone that you forget to take a step back and look at what's going on in your life right in front of you. And that's a huge thing, is having boundaries, or else it's going to affect your mental health.
It's a funny thing, taking the live element out of it. And how does that pandemic and not being able to perform affect how I look at songwriting? Sometimes even the performance outweighs the quality of music. Taking that away kind of forces you to then look back at how you craft, how you arrange, how you produce. and think, okay, if somebody across the world is going to hear this for the first time, how do I capture that?
I think for better and for worse, I think diversity became a huge conversation piece. I think because we had to all slow down, people discuss diversity a lot more, which it does need to be discussed a lot more. I do think there's a lot of underrepresented groups that need that voice, need that platform. And with that can also come like tokenization, and with that can also come, you know, a sense of entitlement for a lot of people. And that's just the reality of it, you know. With the good always does come the bad.
The forced collaboration and change that the pandemic brought about caused me to simplify a lot of things, musically and personally. Simplify the arrangements of the songs in a way that like a band sounds good playing this live versus trying to distill the complexities of a studio layered thing into like, what are the essential elements that make this sound like this song when we play it live, you know? Started to feel more like I was a technician and not a musician. I've really enjoyed just putting that aside and like going back to a more like old school organic approach. The pandemic forced me to stop and reassess, and it was ugly at first. It was very like heavy, and I was depressed, and I just felt bad, and I didn't know what to do. And however long it took for me to climb out of that hole, I did climb out of it, and the thing that helped me, ironically, is music, just getting back into the process of writing music and doing that. So I was focused very heavily on trying to create a band style before that, to work with a band. Even if it was a solo record, I wanted it to sound like a band, you know? And when the pandemic hit, you weren't even allowed to have a band in your house. You know, I couldn't have other people over. So it forced me back into a direction of being a solo artist. I had to make music entirely by myself.
Still right in the face, though it hurts out some in a song. But you know, I learn as I go.
So I wrote a record called Dry Kiss where I played all the drums myself, and I just had a lot of fun. Like playing the drums is such a physical expression. It's like, there's a line by a songwriter called Dave Bazan. He describes drums as playing sports about your feelings, which I love because it's this physical like exertion of energy, but it's music too. And it's not a small movement, it's like your whole body.
100% the scene has come back in full force. It was so exciting to go to those first like few shows and embrace other people and listen to live music and have a ringing in your ears after the show. I think, again, another positive about this whole thing is just like how strong it came back. I knew people were going to kind of be like chomping at the bit, but it amazed me not only how strong it was, but how it continues to be strong and grow.
The pandemic kind of forced a stop. So people came out with new material and new bands and new groups that they've always been wanting to do for a while. So there's been like a big infusion of creativity and, just new motivation, which has been nice.
We did lose a lot of our spaces, and specifically within our genre, not a lot of people are very welcoming, I would say. And I'm going to say that because it's true. It's hard to find spaces and venues that are accepting of, metal bands, rock bands, a little bit more aggressive in a sense, but still music. It's still amazing. People still enjoy it.
I've had people come to shows post-pandemic in tears after, being like, that was the first show I'd seen in 6 months. I haven't seen a live show in years. Like, I forgot how important it was for me to go out and listen to music.
There's a lot of good things coming for Kelowna. So the cultural hub, downtown Kelowna, is 6,000 square feet. I think it's going to be ran through it's going to be owned by the city and have 3 different culture groups as part of it. That hasn't happened yet. That's going to happen soon. The spaces that we have already built, like the breweries and other stuff, they're established. There's going to evolve a little bit here and there kind of thing, but there's going to be desire to grow. Once UBCO comes downtown, that was one of my favorite last votes, like UBCO coming downtown. We're talking about 500-600 young adults downtown adding to, guess what, vibrancy and wanting to be out past when I want to be going to bed. Just that simple.
One of the things I really noticed was push towards more organic music. A lot of bands and people performing with guitars and basses and pianos and drums versus electronic-based stuff where there was a lot of backing tracks and things. So I've just really been enjoying the more organic process. In the moment, you can say, hey guys, let's take the bridge out tonight, or let's extend the solo, or let's whatever, all that stuff is so much more immediate.
I see a lot of clickiness between the genres, between the people. And if we can break down those barriers a little bit, I know that sounds really cheesy, have pop punk bands play with metal bands. It just doesn't matter. It's all music at the end of the day.
There is an inherent fear of venues to take a chance with even what they're not used to. There's a lot of venues in town that the artists it's a carousel. The same artists kind of pop up repeatedly, or the venue is like, nah, this is what we want to go for. But if you're not willing to change that, if you're not willing to bring in maybe a band that kind of pushes your boundaries into what you expect or what you like, you're doing a huge disservice to your audience. There's people who have come to my shows who've had no idea who I was, but they read the description on Eventbrite and bought a ticket. If that venue never would have taken a chance on me, they would have never been able to take a chance on being in that venue and seeing where that goes.
I think the biggest thing is infrastructure, really. Man, I think it's amazing that in Canada, we get things like grant funding that does not exist in the States, like at all. And people are getting grants, and a lot of people are able to capitalize on that opportunity. But I do think there's a degree of infrastructure where if I go play a venue that's owned by a larger production company or promoter, and I do really well that night, like the infrastructure should then be, hey, we can build together and we can grow a career together. Let's do more events together. Let's book a full tour together. And the same thing goes for if you put out a record that does well. It's like there needs to be some kind of like, okay, well, where are the managers to support this? Where are the labels to support this? Like, where are like the independent, radio stations and independent like digital advertising communities that can actually help accelerate your career?
I would speak to the bureaucrats in Kelowna and have a conversation about how tourism is not going to save the arts. Tourism is not going to be the thing that is going to get arts in Kelowna to a place where there's a thriving scene of people who are excited about more than just a party.
The analogy here is kind of people clinging to the old life, the rock and roll shows where you're there with your friends to have like a big night out and there's just music there. It's this weird thing where we've progressed, but we're still kind of paying homage to those days where music wasn't really the be all end all. I love it. It's fun. You play the show, sometimes you're defeated because it's people just talk through your whole set. But then you play the shows where people are pin drop quiet, and it reaffirms why you're doing what you're doing.
You know, if I could talk to myself before the pandemic and give myself any advice, it would be, it's going to be okay. And seek out the people that understand and that celebrate and that support you.
The most practical piece of advice I can give myself is probably around surrounding my own mental health, honestly. That was a great time of just self-reflection, self-awareness, and putting a lot more value on like caring about myself.
It's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to say no. That's a huge thing. Don't try to wear yourself down too thin, because it never works out. And when you're down, it's okay, because it's a bad day, not a bad life. And you will get through it. And you have great support, great community, and people that want to see you be successful. So even though it feels like it's a tough day, tough week, tough month, it will get better.
I think if I had to tell myself something pre-pandemic, what I know now, I would probably tell myself to not worry about it so much, because when it happened, March 14th or whatever the date was, when everything changed with COVID, it sent me and a lot of people into this kind of dark spiral of just like, what am I doing? Does any of this matter? It felt very heavy, felt very existential. And as it turns out, that was useful, that feeling of existential dread and just like, what's my why? As you were describing it, like finding your why, which has been so valuable. But I would tell myself that it doesn't matter. Like, don't worry about it so much. Just focus on what you love.
A piece of advice I would give to newcomers is don't underestimate hard work. You know, because looking at Instagram and seeing the reward is like one thing and it's awesome, but putting in the hours you can't match that.
You got to be obsessed. You got to be all in. Don't think about the outcome. If you think about the money you want to make or the success you want to have, you've already shot yourself in the foot.
Find a way of finding your own artistic voice and be very true to that. Think about the things that you're saying and talking about and producing and like what that encapsulates. And if that represents you and you like that it represents you, continue doing that. I also think we already have a Travis Scott. We don't need another million Travis Scotts. We already have, a Playboy Cardi. We don't need another million Playboy Cardis. We need Artist X to just be Artist X.
Hit the road. Bring your music on the road. Start going to the small towns now. Go get out there. I focus on trying to get the radio and the TV placements, and I miss the whole get out and tour. Like you do all the above, like record the professional sounds, get on TV shows if you can with music supervisors, but just get out and perform and build that brand, because that's really, if you're starting, that's what gets you out there.
Go out there and make mistakes. Put yourself in a position that makes you uncomfortable, because that's when you will truly realize your potential. If it's something that you want to be doing, maybe you're going to shows and like, I'd love to try that. And you get on stage, you're like, absolutely not for me, but I love music. And how does that then transform to maybe you become an audio engineer, or maybe you get onto the production side of music. Learning is the goal. Growth and not staying idle is always the goal. That's always my biggest piece of advice. Just if I can get to where I am, which who the hell knows where that is, anybody can. And maybe that's tacky, maybe that's passé or cliche, but why not?
Play a lot of shows and talk to a lot of people and market yourself that way, because that's the only way that you're going to get people coming out to your shows, is making friends in this town.
And the common refrain for me is learn how to record your own music. Even if you're going to come work with a producer, learn how to record your own music. Learn how to arrange and do all that stuff at home, so that you have a voice, so that you have a vision for what you're doing.
But I'm very aware that what I do is not 100% who I am, but who I am is what I do. Rap.
Creatures in the night, I know your names, as clear as dawn, as I'm awakened by giants as passing trains, as they rattle on past